G'day everyone. Thanks for inviting me to come along and talk to you today about the Queanbeyan Sewage Treatment Plant upgrade. It's a very large, very important project for council. We love coming out into the community to talk about the project and hear different thoughts and ideas and discuss it. We're certainly very passionate and very privileged to work on the project and hoping to deliver a large piece of public infrastructure for the community. Our vision and mission for the project that was established at the start of the sort of basis of design, concept design phase, was to deliver a robust, reliable and sustainable sewage treatment plant that protects public health and the environment for future generations. Every time we have to make a decision on a project, that is the statement that we go back to and we say, are we achieving this? And so that's been the driver for me going forwards. I'd just like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the Queanbeyan-Palerang area and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. As mentioned, my name is Simon Boulton. I work for Queanbeyan-Palerang Regional Council and I'm the project manager for the sewage treatment plant upgrade. I'll just run through a bit of an overview of the project today, talk about some key design features of the project, discuss the sustainable outcomes that we're trying to achieve, give a bit of an update on the project status and allow some time for questions and answers at the end. For those who aren't familiar, our treatment plant is located just over the ACT New South Wales border in the ACT. So we are a New South Wales government organisation delivering a project in another territory. The treatment plant is, as has been discussed today, upstream of Lake Burley-Griffin, so our discharge does travel a few kilometres downstream into the lake. We also are very close to the Canberra airport, and that provides some restrictions for us with regards to airspace and bird strike risk that we've had to manage. The Queanbeyan township, all rivers flow into the Molonglo River and down into the ACT, into the Lake Burley-Griffin, and so all flows go down there, and that's something that regardless of where the treatment plant is, that's a constraint that we would have to deal with no matter where the treatment plant was located. You can see on the aerial image down on the bottom left, that's our existing treatment plant on the site. It's a very large site. A lot of the site is in a floodplain. Those large maturation ponds are where we currently UV sterilise the existing sewage treatment. We have to, on that site, build a whole new treatment plant that's twice the capacity, that has a huge amount of earthworks and has to keep the current treatment plant operating. So one of our constraints is we have to keep treating the current sewage and build the new treatment plant. So why do we need a new sewage treatment plant? The existing treatment plant is beyond its operating life. It was the first trickling filters were constructed in the 1930s. The treatment plant's had numerous upgrades since then, with the last major upgrade being in the 1980s, and that's largely how the plant has been left to date. A lot of the equipment is at the end of its service life. A lot of the electrical equipment is at the end of its service life, and replacing all of those things is a major project in itself. The treatment plant maturation ponds are located in about the 1 in 20 year floodplain, so they would be inundated. One of them did collapse in 2010 during a flood event, and that's an ongoing risk. There's two dams that are regulated in the ACT that we have on site that we have to manage. There's growth within Queanbeyan. We need to address the growing population. So the current treatment plant has a design capacity of 34,500 equivalent population. Currently, we're treating typically around 45,000 equivalent people, with peaks seasonally up to 52,000. So that's the current treatment plant to be operating at those levels and still largely achieving the licence limits has been a great feat for Queanbeyan, but we've been trying to push this project for a long time to get it running because we have growth that's occurring and we need to treat that increase in population. The new treatment plant has been designed for 75,000 equivalent population and has provisions to expand a further 50% to treat up to what we hope is an ultimate sort of population around 112,000 EP for that catchment. So yeah, that's just looking at Queanbeyan itself. You can see the red lines are our sewage main network. All pipes flow up to our sewage treatment plant just over the border, and you can see here there's a few growth areas. The yellow areas here of Jumping Creek and South Jerrabombra, there's certainly growth areas that are happening now, and that increased population growth is coming online now, and unfortunately the current treatment plant is going to have to deal with that until we can get a new one online. But certainly what's a bad probably situation for us now with the treatment plant being under capacity is going to get worse, and there's an urgent need for us to get this new treatment plant online. So what are we doing? We've proposed to build the new 75,000 EP treatment plant on the existing site. That decision was made through a master planning process that commenced in around 2014, looked at various options of what we could do. The outcome of that was we need to do something right now to address the current problem, which is upgrade the existing treatment plant, and then with future growth in the future, there's other options to be looked at of what we could do. The new treatment plant is designed to be modern, robust, reliable and sustainable. We have committed to achieving an Infrastructure Sustainability Council design and as-built rating of excellent. So there's a very, very heavy emphasis of sustainability on this project. Our longest running engagements on the project are our sustainability engagements with ISC and the sustainability consultants. So sustainability has driven the design of the project from the very start. There's a number of other infrastructure upgrades that need to occur as part of our project. We need to upgrade the power supply to the site, the potable water supply from Icon Water, and we're proposing to upgrade Mountain Road, which is an ACT government road, but it's currently unsealed, and we need to have better access provided to this new treatment plant in the long run. What are we proposing to do? So I'm not a process engineer, but I'll talk you through this as best I can. So the new treatment plant, at the inlet we have screening where we screen the flow down to around 5 millimetres. We've used the existing pipe network with an extension and just using the existing grade of those pipes to have the inlet works without having a need to pump it initially. Unfortunately, that puts us very low down on the site, and so after we screen it, we do have to pump the flows up and lift them up higher on the site, and we then again use hydraulic flows to our advantage as best we can using the natural grade of the land. Once we pump it up, it goes through grit removal where we remove the sand and other very small particles, and then the flow goes into an activated sludge nutrient removal, which is our big, very large bioreactors. I'll probably refer to them as going forwards. They look a bit like a racetrack. We're attempting to achieve enhanced biological phosphorus removal within those structures, and they also remove other nutrients like nitrogen primarily. From there, the flow splits. Some flows taken to the primarily large amount of the flow is taken to the clarifiers where the sludge is sort of settled out, and the cleaner water then goes through and gets lifted into our dissolved air flotation filter. In that process, that's really polishing the effluent quality. That's really there to get the phosphorus and nitrogen down as low as we can, and as an oxygen saturated flow is pumped into the sewage there, and we float some of the nutrients off on the top, and some of it goes down through like sand and coal filter beds and comes out into a clean water tank where it then passes through UV disinfection on the site, and then out to the Molongo River. We can, at the end of the UV disinfection, we have a capacity for recycled water takeoff. Now that's been designed currently to provide recycled water for the process treatment in the plant, and there is also a truck fill station on the site where we'll be able to fill tankers that might be able to use recycled water subject to approval of that occurring later. But the space we've allowed for at the end of the process allows for the implementation or insertion of larger pumps to account for a larger scale recycled water network, should that be something that you look to in the future. So we say we've designed the plant to be recycled water ready. That project would be a whole other project for council to look at in the future. Going back to just after the biological nutrient reactor, we take some of the flow off where it goes through aerobic digestion and then dewatering, and we end up with a biosolids product that's placed into truck bodies that I guess is been designed to be suitable for a certain class of reuse. We also have a side stream that the return water from the dewatering goes through lime clarification. This is I guess a feature of our project that was added in through the detailed design phase, where we add lime to that flow, and we settle out the phosphorus that's released through the aerobic digestion process. We end up with a lime-rich phosphorus product that can be produced by itself or added to the biosolids, and I understand that's a biologically available phosphorus that can be used for plant uptake. When we use chemical phosphorus removal, I understand that binds the phosphorus and isn't necessarily available for plant uptake. So that really helps us achieve that enhanced biological phosphorus removal by removing that extra phosphorus that's returning to the stream. And really allows us to reduce the amount of chemicals needed, so we don't need to rely on chemical phosphorus removal. That said, the plant is designed for full chemical phosphorus removal, so in the event, sometimes when you have large rain events and you lose that biological capacity, we do have multiple dosing points for chemicals, and we can keep the process operating within the parameters that will be in the discharge licence. That's what that looks like on site. We'll do a flyover next, and I think everyone likes a flyover. But it's you can see how we've wound the new treatment plant around the existing treatment plant that we need to keep operating. We see this area south of the country plant as the future expansion zone, and so we have designed the current treatment plant to allow for that future expansion and located things and allowed blanks in some of the tanks to account for that. So we have our very large storm pond. That's a feature I forgot to talk about on the last slide, but the storm pond, the treatment process is designed to generally treat around 3 times the average dry weather flow. So when it rains, we have inflow and infiltration into our sewer network, and the flows coming into the plant increase significantly. We have a secondary contact process that occurs in the clarifiers that allows us to treat up to 5 times the average dry weather flow, and that gets fully UV sterilised before it goes into the river. That's huge for a treatment plant. The storm pond, it acts as a slight balancing when it's going between those different operational phases, and also allows us to treat or to store temporarily up to 9 times the average dry weather flow without discharging raw sewage into the environment. The design of that storm pond was originally done, or intended to be done, for around to not exceed it in a sort of a 1 in 10 year period. Through the EIS process and working with the Conservator of Flora and Fauna's team in the ACT, we went back and did some predictive modelling over the rainfall records from the last 100 years. And I understand that modelling only showed 3 exceedances throughout 100 years. So I guess the hope and the expectation of that is to have very, very few discharges into the environment. I understand typically sewage treatment plants, might be designed for 3 times average dry weather flow, and then they would just outfall. So I think what we've done here is huge in terms of trying to protect the Molonglo River and Lake Burley Griffin. Yeah, so I guess that's the layout, and then we have this is sort of the sludge digestion and biosolids handling over here. A huge amount of earthworks on the site that need to occur, 200,000 cubic metres of fill that we need to manage through construction whilst keeping the current treatment plant operating. It's going to be a big challenge to construct this thing. This is a flyover that we've prepared for past presentations. You can sort of see us coming along Mountain Road, heading towards the plant. This survey data that's taken with the 3D projection of the landform is amazing, I think, and it's not often you get to work on projects that have the budget to do this, but it's just fantastic to be able to see the plant designed in 3D. You can see our structures. We've gone out and done early vendor engagement and purchased a number of pieces of equipment that fit these structures, and that's 3D models of the actual equipment that we're going to be putting on the site. And it's just amazing the level of detail that we have in this model, and you can zoom in and play with it and see where everything is. It's just incredible. So you can see the DAF structure is a massive, massive structure. We have a little storm pond there for taking like storm water that runs off the site and not impacting that. That's our sort of sludge digestion tanks there, and new amenities building at the front end of the plant. You can start to see we've lost it now, but I guess there's a huge amount of there's aeration in the sludge handling and in the main digester. So there's massive pipes that pump air into those tanks. This is the inlet work, so you can sort of see here the screening here, the overflow channel into the storm pond and the pumps that will lift the flow up into the next bit. That's our grit removal facility there. And the large bioreactor tanks there. They're about 100 metres long, 40 metres wide and 5 metres deep. They are absolutely massive, massive structures. There's two of them there, and this is where all of the, in between them is where all the complex things that go on to achieve that enhanced biological phosphorus removal and get the right bugs growing in the network. Yep, this structure is again huge. I think it's like over 9 metres tall. It's absolutely massive. And it's very hard to appreciate the scale of what we're proposing to build there. The UV sterilisation, that's our little recycled water sort of offtake there. That's inside the DAF building, so there's a lot going on in there, and I think the heights around allowing crane access to lift some of the stuff in and out of there, and a very, very complex network of pipes underground and throughout the site. And you can see the UV facility we're just starting to scan across now. All of the UV is underground so that, you know, no one's getting exposed to that. But again, that's sized to allow for future expansion, but only has UV globes to suit the current design capacity. And out the back there is where we're discharging into the environment. This is where our chemical storage building and our dewatering facility and the centrifuges spin the stuff and take the biosolids out, and they get loaded into truck bodies where we can take them off-site for disposal. At the inlet, we have a septic receival facility here and a recycled water off-tank. We don't currently have septic receival, so that's something we've added into this treatment plant to have that capacity. So this is one something that we haven't shared before in any of our presentations, and I think it's something that we've only recently sort of finalised and I've found very, very interesting. As part of our Infrastructure Sustainability Council rating commitment, one of the criteria relates to floodplain impacts, and so we were required to model, I guess, the afflux, the impact of the current treatment, the difference between what's there currently and when we build the new treatment plant. And with the new treatment plant design only being completed a few years ago, we then got the floodplain modelers to chuck the new treatment plant design into the model, and, you know, a very big lesson learnt for us there. We had planned to dispose of all of the excess fill material on the site with some very large maturation ponds that needed to be filled in. We had all thought, great, we'll just fill them in with material and try to match the natural ground levels, and that will be that. Lo and behold, we then went and ran the floodplain model and discovered that we were having floodplain impacts back up into Queanbeyan, and we thought, wow, no one expected that. And so we then began a process of iterative design. Let's try and understand in the model what is causing the backup of water, and we started to play with changing the earthworks profile that we were proposing. And after several iterations, we came up with this, which is our preferred model now. So the disposal of the earthworks is more largely occurring above the floodplain. You can see on this image over here is the 1% AEP afflux, which is about the 1 in 100 year floodplain. And you can see all this blue here is a very, very small, so that's 10 to 100 mil reduction in floodplain levels. So I'm not going to say that we're going to have a 100 mil reduction, maybe closer to 10, but certainly our earthworks design is decreasing the floodplain at the 1 in 100 level all the way up through Queanbeyan, which I think is a fantastic result with the 1 mil to 10 mil difference downstream. So we're not impacting downstream, and we're having this positive impact upstream, and that's been a challenge to get there, but that's a really good outcome. I've also shown here the 0.2% AEP flood event afflux, which is around the 1 in 500 year event, and that correlates roughly with how the modelers sort of estimate the impact of climate change as well. So when we look at climate change on the 1 in 100 year flood event, they would model the 0.2% AEP to look at what that might be. And you can see that our current treatment plant is located largely above the 1 in 500 year flood event. The purple is where there's no more, or the pink is sort of where there's no more floodplain impacts. Again, a very similar afflux difference. We're reducing the flood levels largely very at small amounts, and yeah, locally there's some increases, but that's largely on our site and on farming land and well within the constraints that we're expected to achieve. So I think we're very happy with the outcomes we've been able to achieve in the floodplain. There's a lot of sustainability features that we've been working through as part of our ISK commitments. I guess some of the key things I think I've talked about with the reduction of chemicals by trying to achieve the enhanced biological phosphorus removal. That's a huge saving in chemicals usage. And I guess some of the design work's been done to eliminate the need for mechanical mixing in our bioreactors here. Typically you would have mechanical mixers in there to stir up the inflow and create the right conditions for bugs to grow. Our designers have run a test plant on the site and done some modelling and come up with hydraulic mixing naturally by using the structures themselves to help mix the sewage inflow there and achieve an energy saving for the plant. As I mentioned, the plant is designed to allow for future expansion, so we've done this to allow for future expansion, and that can happen in a staged manner. We don't necessarily have to go and do a massive upgrade like we're doing now, so that's a lot more beneficial for managing cash flow in the sewer fund going forwards as well. There's lots of other things on the site. There's areas of golden sun moth that we're trying to avoid. We've done some very large amounts of sort of Aboriginal artefact excavations. More recently, that's sort of holding up our DA at the moment, but we've been out and done, I think it was 77 test pits on the site in the Pad 2 area, which is sort of located over here. And there's another area that's called Pad 1, which we're just avoiding because it's an area of potential high significance. So lots of constraints on the site. So when we look at locating the treatment plant and other things, the floodplain, the golden sun moth, the potential archaeological deposit areas are things that we're trying to avoid. So I guess what do we do after we build the new plant? So the new plant, you can see here, is our sort of landscape revegetation master plan. We did that with community groups that were interested through a series of workshops to come up with what do we want on the site. A lot of constraints for us to manage. But ultimately, I guess at the end of the project, the maturation ponds get filled in and then it's sort of revegetated into a sort of a riparian landscape. And that might relate to some of the next conversation. Quick update on the timeline. So I guess we started a long way back. We're now sort of in the detailed design planning approval phase. The detailed design is around 90 to 95% complete. Planning approval, we have a DA currently with ACT government. We got a number of RFIs to address last year, one of them around the ACT, the heritage on the site. And so we've gone away and done a series of investigations there. Unfortunately, the timeframes for approval are very long. We're about to make a submission to respond to the DRFIs this month. And then we'll be sitting waiting until we get approval, which is not forecast until later this year. If that all happens, we can hopefully have a principal contractor engaged and go to construction in 2026. And there's about 2 years to build and commission the new treatment plant. So hopefully operational in 2028, and then go back in another 6 to 9 months to do the earthworks and revegetation exercise after that. Lots of information available on our website. Thank you for listening to the talk and having an opportunity to share our project with you. Any questions?